episode 20 of Peerless Gamer, and we're continuing through our Lumina Aegis campaign. And what you probably learned in episode 19 is that James and Slick and Dr. Osric are making their way into Zinnia, because Zinnia has asked for help. Zinnia believes that based on communication that Zinnia's intercepted and has given access to James and Slick and Dr. Osric on board the Wild Deliverance, that there is a non-zero chance that Atwell Industries is attempting to leverage what they thought was a black hole, and now obviously something better, into whatever it is they plan on doing. And Zinnia has no way of defending themselves outside of pretending to be a black hole or manipulating gravity. There could be other things that we're unaware of that Zinnia can't do or has been asked to do in terms of rules like non-interference. Well, obviously not non-interference, but being able to take a human life or to destroy life. The purpose of what Zinnia is as yet unclear from the people that left, or the civilization that left Zinnia here. So Zinnia has asked us to take them away from this place. So we are in the process of getting Zinnia. We can't just simply download Zinnia to our computer because we don't have the resources to be able to do so. So there obviously we're going to need to go in and get Zinnia. So this one will be somewhat formatted like a dungeon crawl, in the form of a precursor vault, or one of the vaults that has been left by the technologically advanced race that created the Forge, or is seeded the Forge with various civilizations and people, including ourselves, which is how we got here. We found that the technology from the probes and the technology of Zinnia are relatively similar. There's definitely, based on scans, that the technology is somewhat similar, or at least the building, manufacture, the composition of metals, etc., are very similar. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here with our game, keeping in mind that we have begun our expedition to Zinnia, and I think what we're going to start out with is a nice little vignette. In the last episode, we found out that the Colossus, which is one of the ships that has been following us, the Colossus, the Siren, and the Butterfeld, amongst a couple of others, they had data that showed that the attempts to hide themselves, James and Slick and Dr. Osric, and the Deliverance in the debris field to simulate, they didn't make it, looks a little fishy, and they're going to go investigate with the idea that this is something more than what it seems, and that take that as you will. Maybe the sensor echoes, maybe they showed a gap, maybe there was something changed course, maybe there was something there that gave them pause to need to go and investigate. So the Colossus has fixed the repairs that Dr. Osric had caused by turning on the fire suppression systems, and the Butterfeld's captain, the Colossus's captain, which is the flagship, and the Centipede and the Siren are all on their way to the last known position of the Wild Deliverance, with the idea that they're going to be able to, find their way through. It may take them some time. How much time that is, we're not sure yet. I'm still working on those mechanics. If it's how long it's going to take, in a counter-like thing with, we did some of that last time with the, closing distance between the Deliverance and the Butterfeld. And some of that worked, some of that could be a little bit nicer. I have to blame some of that on my ADD and trying to keep everybody entertained here. So my apologies for that. So where we're going to start this time is Zinnia has taken over control, remote control of the ship, because Zinnia is a hologram avatar, if you will. Think Andromeda Ascendant, where there was a, an avatar of Zinnia, and Zinnia is somewhere else in this 12-sided die of a sphere-like object, and we are inside. And so what we're having to do, what the team is going to have to do, is harvest Zinnia or get Zinnia, and there may be some pitfalls, there may be some interesting things that occur that will cause some conflict. And there's the overriding issue of ships are coming, we're going to need to get Zinnia, and we're also going to have to find some way of getting out of here safely. So that's where we're going to start. All right, so we open the scene with, I think, James and Slick heading out of the Wild Deliverance. Landing was uneventful. As we mentioned in episode 19, Zinnia had taken control, or had a tractor beam, if you will, or something that they had used to control the landing, or they took over maneuvering of the ship and brought the Wild Deliverance in for a landing. James and Slick take the necessary measurements to find out if there's atmosphere. There is breathable atmosphere, which is fine. It's not like Galaxy Quest where they open the door and it's like, is there air? You don't know. So James and Slick walk down the ramp, and I would imagine that the area of, because this was a huge, not a sphere, but it was a 12-sided die kind of thing. So, we're looking at pop, something like that. So we're looking at a 12-sided die. For those of you who don't know, it's like something that looks like this one right here. So, maybe we came in on this face of the object, but the object is immense, right? It is easily dwarfs anything Neoma Station could probably fit inside. Several Neoma stations could fit inside of this, so this is not a small polygon. This is not a small polyhedron that holds this. So there may be other things in here. We've only met Zinnia, so we don't know exactly what to expect. So James grabs his trusty weapon. Slick also has a similar weapon that they use for protection. They don't have gun control laws, but it's not every place you're going to land in the Forge is going to be a safe place, especially if it's undiscovered. So James may have probably some kind of long blade. Slick might also have a knife or something. Dr. Osric, does Dr. Osric want to go with? I think that's the first question we want to ask. Dr. Osric is a scientist. He loves studying the unknown. This would be the first time anybody in record has seen anything similar to this. To their knowledge, I don't think that there's been any examples of this kind of thing. So I think, I'm not even going to bother rolling. I think Dr. Osric will go, but I think it's more like he doesn't have any weapon skills. He might be able to help, with some of the computer stuff, or, understanding some of the science. So he may have like a scanner. He might have some kind of tricorder, if you will, that can be used to record things. So he may have a camera. He may have some kind of audio visual equipment to be able to do that. But he does not have any skills for defense, if you will. So if there is something in here that isn't on the up and up, we might need to rely on James and Slick. So as you can see here on our screen, we have our rescuing Xenia and escaping from the corporate ships. I think that's two things, but I think that they're very tightly connected. We can rescue Xenia, but if we don't escape the ships, then we've done the hard work. We're Indiana Jones, and the corporate ships are the Nazis, in the movie. Indiana Jones just did all the hard work for the Nazis, and now they have to turn it over to corporate ships, which is not good. So ideally, rescuing Xenia part of it is going to be being able to escape the corporate ships. And for a little bit of continuity, there was a role at the beginning, I believe, of episode 18 where we had a help will come from an unexpected place or something very similar to that. And so I haven't forgotten that. That's still kind of maybe an ace in the hole, if you will, where if something is completely dire, that may be where we can slide that in. I don't see any rules where you have to use those things immediately. And considering the time frame has been within about 6 to 8 hours that we're looking at here, it could happen. I mean, I'm not expecting to use this 2 years down the line in the gameplay timeline, but I would say within a day, maybe there's things happening in the background that we're unaware of that will happen or can occur. So, and also to one other thing. We did roll last game, and Xenia did find out that it would be possible to modify the information to find Dr. Manon's killer. We found out that it was in fact Xenia who was trying to send a message that caused the malfunction of the spacesuit, not a killer in this case. So Xenia is currently in the process, as Xenia can multitask, so should be able to modify some records on Neoma Station at the same time, trying to land our ship at the same time. So just to give you an idea of the kind of power that Xenia might have, with the idea to try to remove any implication of James or Slick being suspects or to be involved in any way because our boss knew who Dr. Manon was. So yeah, that's where we're at on that. So James and Slick walk down the ramp. I want to say it's a cavernous. It's not a hangar. It's just a big room, and there's no light. So I would say the only light is coming off of maybe a headlamp that Xenia and James have, and of course there might be some light coming from Xenia because Xenia is also on the ship but is in miniature. We might actually see a full height of Xenia, and that would potentially throw off some light. So a hologram is a hard light, if you will, or something. So I think there'll be light, and it'll be a combination of a torch or a flashlight or something. James and Dr. Osric and Slick have, and then of course there'll be light coming off of Xenia. So there's a good bit of light in the area, but that light does not suffuse and show the area. So they can see the ship, but it all reaches out into black, right? They shine the light out there, but there's nothing within the beam of light that they have. And I mean, we're talking, Mulder and Scully X-Files like lights. If you remember the X-Files, I mean, those lights were massive. So this is a massive room. James is apprehensive. I want to see if there's any. Let's see if there's a sensory kind of thing. Can we hear? Can we see anything? Well, we obviously can't see anything because we've described it as a huge cavernous area that the flashlights can't hit. But what I'd love to do is to see if there's any smells, any hearing. What does it smell like? So, and the idea would be to gather information on that. So, let's see, security advantage. We're doing some exploration, right? So we need to go to exploration moves, and to undertake our expedition, we're going to call that, rescuing Zinnia and what have you. So, all right, gathering information. There it is. We're going to roll wits, which, as we know, is a 2. So we're going to go ahead and roll minus the d12, obviously. All right, so we've got a strong hit, right? So we're gonna discover something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must make progress is clear. Envision what you learn, then take 2 momentum. All right, well, we're already maxed out on momentum, so not much to hit there. But so I think when they came off the ship, they came off on one side of the ship, and the area is so massive that there was no light, no nothing. James smells, I want to say the air is stale. So it's like people haven't been here, nothing has been in this area for a while. The air there's no smell that other than maybe an acrid smell coming off of the ship, the smells that come from the thrusters, that come from the ionization of the engines, things that he's familiar with in this case. The sounds that he hears is the sounds of the ship, maybe cooling off or venting, heat from the engines. But he does hear a pinging sound. And he asks Slick, and he asks Dr. Osric, do you hear those? Slick says, I hear that. I don't know where it's coming from. Let's go look around a little bit. So, obviously, James says, stay close. Let's not get too separated. Try to keep within earshot and eyeshot of people. We don't want to go too far and fall off a platform, if you will. Make sure you keep pointing down and looking down on the shining your light downwards. It's a metallic. It's very, very similar color to the outside of the polygon, the polyhedron, and it makes an echoing sound, like maybe it's hollow underneath, or maybe there's something there. So as James and Slick and Dr. Osric walk around the edge of the ship, there is a shaft of light in the distance. I don't know how far away it is. I mean, it's pinprick. It's not a pinprick of light, but it looks like there might be something. There's definitely something over there. So James and them are like, head over here. James says, "Hey, let's go check that out. That looks like our welcome." And Zinnia's there, and she's like, "This is the way to go. This will be how we need to get there." I apologize. Yeah, we don't have any complications. So I'm just going to say yes. This is the way we're going to go. If there had been complications, might have been something like, some of my systems are down, so we're going to have to take a more circuitous route or something like that. So, all right. So exploration moves. You need to divert from an expedition to examine a notable location. Technically, if I didn't want to gather information and explore a waypoint, I could have explored this room. Rolled wits. I got a strong hit on wits. Strong hit, you may make a discovery, which would have been, so we'll go ahead and explore a waypoint next. So we've got about, I would say, I'm trying to make this like a 5 or 6 room kind of dungeon sphere kind of thing. So we're gonna go that route with it. So we'll figure this out. So they keep walking. James is like, how far away is this? I mean, this looks massive, and Zinnia says that it's, you know, a couple 100 feet, right? This is how big this area is. James has, I think, the wherewithal to have his flashlight, torch, if you will, and maybe he has his, I don't know if he'd have his gun out. Would he have his gun out or weapon? Because he has two weapons. He has his maybe a long knife. Maybe he has a long knife out. So James asks, "Is there anything dangerous to us in this facility, in this place?" I almost want there to be something. I just don't know how we want to go about doing that. You know what? I think, do we want to confront chaos? I don't know how we would. Okay, how would we find something dreadful? Because that's my point. How would we? Maybe we could just, you know, we ask Zinnia, is there anything we need to be worried about? Security systems. You know, maybe they're not alone. Maybe there's something in here. Maybe somebody from corporate actually made it in here. Maybe we don't know. So maybe there's something else going on. So I'm going to roll a D100, and I'm going to use the confront chaos table because I'm going to ask Zinnia about what could harm us here, or is there anything you can tell us about this area, or where you live, because this is where Zinnia lives, basically. So let's go ahead and roll 2D10. First digit is the tens digit. So we have 78. So, oh. Very interesting. James says to Zinnia, is there anything that, for those of you who didn't see, 78 to 82 is a site of terrible carnage. So James asks Zinnia, is there anything dangerous, anything that could harm us in the site here? And Zinnia says she controls the building and the systems inside, but there was, and maybe there's some exposition here, right? So maybe the creators that created Zinnia, maybe there's some conflict. And so Zinnia says the people that created me, or the civilization that created me, died out in a civil war of sorts, many of what you would consider millennia ago. There might be remnants of that here. There was a battle here, and when I awoke, I found logs of, I want to say people, okay? So, you know, they're not aliens because this person wouldn't consider them, you know, Zinnia wouldn't consider them aliens. We would consider them aliens because they're not human. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say people. A people, a civilization, a manatee of some sort, not a humanity, but you know. And I found evidence of battles in the corridors, and I was unable to clean it up or do maintenance on these things. So this has been in vacuum for several of your millennia, so there are still bodies around. James says, is there anything else that we need to worry about? Security systems. Are there any systems you don't control on this site? I think that's good. She said she controls the building or the site, but maybe there's other systems. Maybe that, you know, being technologically advanced, maybe not everything was plugged into what Zinnia was or would have been. Perhaps because Zinnia came alive after the fact, maybe part of that is still trying to wrest control of back from what that was. So yeah, let's do that. I like that. So let's roll. For each result, you encounter aspect within the scope of the encounter. Your allies may mark 1 tick of your discoveries. We'll have 1 mark for a discovery. I'm going to say with that information that she made, we're going to make a discovery. So we're going to roll our 2 die 10 again and get a percentile die. We'll use this over here. 48. So 48 is a marvel of ancient engineering. Okay, that's kind of a gimme because this whole site is a marvel of ancient engineering. So I'm gonna throw again. Come on now, that's a freaking gimme. So we have a 93. Oh, interesting. Interesting. So visions or prophecies of the future. Okay, so I like that one. I think I'm gonna go this route with it. I don't think it's gonna. I'm not gonna call it a vision or a prophecy because there's no magic here. You know, we're not all playing around with Ouija boards or whatever. I do like this option though, the 93 visions or prophecies of the future. James Slick and Dr. Osric are walking through this portal, or through the, into the light, if you will, into what appears to be another large room. And Zinnia says, this is one of the areas that I don't quite understand. I've spent a couple millennia working through the various systems here. I don't control all of the systems here, but I'm fairly certain that none of them are hostile to you. I cannot be for certain. I only have not everything was unlocked to me before everybody died on the site. So James and them walk into what can best be described as a control room, very similar to what we might have saw in Neoma Station. I'm imagining that it is like almost completely white and fitting with the light that was coming from it. And as James and Osric and Slick walk through, there is the door kind of shuts, right? And I think James is a bit alarmed, and he goes back and he attempts to try to open the door. And Zinnia says, no, it's okay. It's quite a drain on power to supply atmosphere to such a large area. So by closing that, I'm able to not have atmosphere there, and will reduce the resource requirements of maintaining an atmosphere and gravity and things in those areas. James is concerned. I need to put my 2 marks in here. So 1 more mark and then 1 more mark. So I'm going to try to figure this out better if we run ironsworn again, in terms of things like bonds and quests and discoveries and the background vows. I do really want to do this background vow, but it's huge, right? So yeah, we'll work through that. James, I don't want to say James is apprehensive, but he's definitely nervous, right? This is not to be where no one has gone before, but it is it's unnerving, right? He's separated from his ship. Obviously, he's not in control of the situation. If, Zinnia's trust has been, not unnerving, but he thinks he can trust Zinnia, but obviously there's a fear of the unknown, right? So there are several rows of consoles in 2 circles, almost like a donut. So you have an outer console, which is like in a circle, in a toroidal shape, if you will. And then you have an inner, like a pillar-like area in the middle, where there are various readouts and outputs, and you see things on the screen. And James, he can pilot a ship. That his skills in computers is not as good as somebody like a Dr. Osric or Slick. So in this case, I think Slick and Dr. Osric, James asks them to go and take a look at what's going on. Nothing is in English or common, or whatever amounts for galactic common in this case. There is several readouts, and can James? I want to say, can James interpret that? Because it's like it's not going to tell you, you're 850 miles from Earth, or from the nearest whatever. But you can go, I see the green thingy, and I see the red thingies, and kind of like on Galaxy Quest, the green thingies are coming to and I think those are missiles or whatever. Can James understand what's going on? So I'm going to give him a 25% chance of understanding something. Oh, snap, look at that, he got it. Okay, all right. What he sees on the screen is very much how it would look if it was an operations console. The other thing he notices that maybe didn't come out at the beginning is the consoles. To reach the console itself, you've got a big giant window of what appears to be glass. And definitely not like a typical view screen. It looks like glass, and you can look through it, but there's also something on the screen that's easily readable. And he sees a couple things. He sees 5 characters of some kind. They're not English, they're not Spanish, they're not any kind of. James sees a couple of things. One, he notices that the height of the consoles, where things are, you're able to manipulate the screens or whatever, is about 6 to 7 foot tall, about 2 meters, 1.8 to 2 meters high. And the other thing he notices is there's a number. There appears to be something on one of the screens that is moving. If it was like a sentence, or if it was like something crawling, there's something moving across the screen in such a way that is interesting. And to James, it looks like there might be some kind of alert. It might look like an alert. And the other thing that he sees is another static display, and it has 7 characters of some kind. Only 1 or 2 are moving, and it's like you see them, and they're like, and then you see this one drop, and then you see. So it almost looks like it's a either maybe a time display showing increments of time, or a countdown or something. And that was it for this episode. So we're going to find out, I think, more about Xenia and what their function was. We're going to go through the complex a bit more. We have a few more places we're going to visit. We'll have a surprise maybe in the next episode. I already have it edited and queued up. I just need to do a little vignette at the beginning of that episode, as per our normal workflow for playing solo, including resolving that unexpected help role from a few sessions ago. I think I have a decent enough little starting point, or little story there that will be happening in the background while all of this has been going on. So I like the storytelling elements where I can go back and kind of decide, well, what will this vignette look like? And so I have an idea on where we're going to go with that. Glad you're here. Glad you're watching. Please check out our Reddit, which is here, and go check out our YouTube channel, which is here. And hope you have a good day. Take care, and we'll see you for the next episode of The Peerless Gamer, Lumina Aegis. So have a great day. Take care. Bye.